Welcome to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and a television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Myrna Young, and today we are going to be talking on the topic, how to write your own Hollywood ending. Years ago when my pastor preached a message on, like when we're born, there is a blank page where we have a beginning and we have an ending. And in the middle, we are supposed to write our story. And we can write our story, we can direct it, we can make a movie. And basically what he was trying to say is that just like my guest today is going to talk about, you can write your own movie of your life with the ending that you want. And it's, a lot of times if you believe it and pray about it, it will turn out exactly the way that you want it to be with your nice Hollywood ending. Yes, so my guest today is Linda Flanders, and she is the author of Hollywood Endings and How to Get One. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Yes, you're very welcome. All right. So let me give you a short bio on Linda. Linda Flanders is a former police inspector with the San Francisco Police Department, a Felden Cross practitioner for 30 years, and an independent video producer. Flanders and her sister, Dr. Dorothy Halapo, created the Matrix model, an innovative way to work with children's atypical behavior and difficult learning problems. They specialized in using the movie making process as a learning and teaching tool, focusing on projects that are educational and promote social and personal change. Linda once lived in Emerald City in a log home she built with her son that became part of the Land of Oz bed and breakfast in Bay City, Wisconsin. Her sister Dorothy was the hostess, of course. Linda currently works for a victim advocacy organization and is a local elected official. All right, interesting bio. And as I mentioned before we started recording, this topic is going to be the first for me to be talking on, on the show. So I'm going to learn, hopefully, some along with my audience on, Hollywood endings and how to get one.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. Okay, so I love the idea of using movie making process as a learning tool to help children with learning disability. Can you share how that works?
Sure. So as you said, I am a Felden Price practitioner and have been for 30 years. And while that particular mode of learning has to do with learning self-awareness and learning through options and how to make choice, and that we need options before we even have choice. So I started working with young children who needed physical therapy, occupational therapy, but their behavior was such that they were absolutely out of control and it scared the physical therapist and the occupational therapist. So that was how I started working with children and behavior. And I focused specifically on self-awareness and self-control. If we have those two things, we can pretty much guide our own ship pretty well. If we don't have them, then we are so vulnerable to so many awful things that can happen in our life and a very dark road. If we cannot control ourselves, somebody else someday somehow is going to control us. Mm-hmm. So that's how I started. And I really started using the movies just as a fun activity with children. But what I found was that even with multiple psychiatric labels attached to them and very bizarre behaviors that they would show, they all listened to the director when you had a camera in your hand.
Yes.
To be in the movie.
Movies. Yes, that is unique. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then what we found was that if we picked a theme, so it was usually a behavioral theme to improve behavior. And what we found was the children loved watching themselves over and over and over. Yes. Now science has shown that what that does is it reinforces a new neural pathway in your brain of behavior. And what we found was that the children started to then just spontaneously act the improved behavior in real life when they really had only done it as an acting gig in the movie.
Oh, that is brilliant. Brilliant. Yes. Yes.
So that's how I started with it.
So you called it, I don't have it here in front of me, a Feldenkrais system.
Feldenkrais. So, right, yeah, spells rhymes with rice, Feldenkrais.
Feldenkrais. Okay, so that is something that he the movie making process where you have the kids be directed in a movie that shows good behavior and self-awareness, and that is all part of that model?
No, that is how I took the model. The Feldenkrais, the Feldenkrais method itself is, it's an educational way of learning, absolutely, and it's experiential. You got to do it for yourself, but it is to teach self-awareness, options, and choice. I simply took it and applied it in my own way to behavior with children.
Because you were a video producer, so you married your two skills and made something really great. Okay, so that's awesome. But tell us, now I understand the behavioral piece, but tell us about the learning disability piece. How does having a kid see themselves being directed in a movie and they're the stars of the movie, how does that help with the a learning disability? For instance, someone that has ADHD or, learning disability, that kind of thing. That's what I'm reading it to be, right?
Okay, the way that, or what I was specifically trying to do was teach self-awareness and self-control, those two primary things for children who had missed it. Okay. And with self-awareness, we would, let me back up to self-control more, because self-control is a huge piece. So what I did was I had them freeze for the camera while I ran around with the camera to a different angle because that's how a movie is. They'll show a close-up or a long shot, a medium shot. And that's what makes a movie interesting, not just the straight, a straight shot. And so I would have them freeze for me to run around and change. And what we found was that the children, one, they had to be in the moment. They had to be present in the moment to do that. And they had to control themselves from the inside out. That's the huge piece of self-control. And if they can gain self-control, then they've got a better opportunity in school to be able to learn the different topics that they needed to learn. We did take topics, and often I would, and often I would use clay. We'd do a clay lesson where they'd create a word, and the word would always be an abstract concept. And then underneath the word, they would have to create something out of clay that represents the definition of the word. So they would get kind of a broader picture of what the word even means that I was going to use in the movie. And self-awareness comes when, one, we're filming the movie, that here, I need you to run real fast to those stairs and then walk up them as quickly as you can. So they have to pay full attention to themselves while they do it. And sometimes they couldn't do what we were asking them to do. So then I had to break it down into smaller steps, and they became much more aware of themselves and what they could do or what they couldn't do, or when they fell apart and got angry or sad, or, I want to be the star of this movie. And those are the things that you could work out during the filming of the movie. Yes. So again, self-awareness and self-control, and then hopefully they could guide their own ship.
And that is like the building blocks to sitting down and actually learning their work. Because I mentioned ADHD. when you have ADHD, you can't sit still, you can't take direction, you know, you're all over the place, you're hyperactive and all that. So that was great. You know, like I said, I've never heard that before. I hope, you know, some teachers that are listening will take some cues from you, that because now we all can do movies on our cell phones. We don't need.
I know, now it's all over. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fun way to learn developmental levels of self-awareness and self-control that we wouldn't have otherwise. I mean, it makes it more fun. Yes. Self-control isn't that much fun. And neither is self-awareness when you realize that, oh, I really hate my job, or I'm in a relationship I don't like, or, you know, I'm not safe where I live. Self-awareness is a double-edged sword, but you can't get out of it until you're aware of it.
Yes, 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 yes. I'm big on the self-awareness piece because it's part and parcel with consciousness. And you're right. A lot of us do not live conscious lives. So, I mean, when we're bringing it down to the kids, we know that they're not self-aware because adults aren't, you know what I mean? So yeah, so that is great. All right. So now I'm going to transition into your book. So you wrote the book, Hollywood Endings and How to Get One. So tell us, what would you like the readers to walk away with after reading the book?
Well, it absolutely is a self-help book, a self-improvement book. It teaches mindfulness. So yes, I'm back to raising self-awareness that, I mean, are you happy? Are you content with this job, or, you know, anything in your life? And it's based on the science of mindfulness, of paying attention to the moment so you are fully present. And I mean, when joyful things happen in our life, we do want to be fully present for it. You know, I mean, there are ups and downs in life, and you can't get out of the down ones until you are aware of it. So in the science world, it's called neuroplasticity. That's how we can change our brain. Basically, I mean, literally on what do we pay attention to? So we probably all have those moments where our mind goes round and round and round that, you know, I just hate my job. I just hate my job. I mean, I'm so unhappy. Now I got to get up in the morning. I got to put makeup on. I go to work and I really hate my job. Well, think of that inner chatter of the brain before you even get to your job, that you're telling yourself this or that. So if we use our imagination to think of, well, what do I want? First, you have to have the baseline of awareness. Then we use our imagination. Where do I want to get to? What's my goal? And for me, the idea of Hollywood endings, it's not necessarily, you know, a romantic one only. It's the idea that any goal you have, if I reach that goal, that's a Hollywood ending until I get another goal. You know, you graduate from college or you get a PhD. I mean, who knows what it is, but it's a goal that you've accomplished. And if we use our imagination, we can imagine ourselves doing it. And then when you start to do that, and use your intention to actually get you to the next step, it's easier because you've already started doing it in your imagination. And it just makes it more fun to link it to the movies.
Yeah, when you were talking, my mind went directly to Pretty Woman, because Pretty Woman started with Hollywood, where dreams are made. You know, it ended with Hollywood, where dreams are made. Anything is possible. You dream it. But in the movie specifically, Julia Roberts had a dream. She had her own Hollywood ending. And she actually told Richard Gere in the movie, hey, you know, all the time I was dreaming, you know, I would be locked up into this room in this castle, and the prince would climb up and he would rescue me. But nowhere did he say, I'm going to put you up in a condo as a mistress. You know what I mean? So she had her Hollywood.
Right, she had a dream of what in her mind was a Hollywood ending.
She had a dream. And the great thing about that, I mean, I'm using that analogy as kind of humorous, but it's really true. Because if you've got a goal and you've got a dream, it's very hard for someone to knock you off of it, which is basically why she didn't accept that. You know, she said, well, hey, you know what? That's a good offer for a girl like me, but, you know, I'm going to stick to the dream. I'm going to stick to the goal because I now believe in myself. I'm now a believer. And she actually gained self-awareness in that whole process.
Yes.
Before she met him, before she had the nice life and seeing what can happen, whatever, she gained self-awareness about herself and went back to school. So yeah, that is a unique way of teaching self-help, teaching mindfulness. If we were to go back to the analogy of someone getting ready for work and they hate their job, right? You're mindful. So basically, yeah, they implant in their mind, I'm actually getting ready for the job of my dreams, kind of thing. I'm assuming that's where you're going with that, right? Yeah. When you write your own story.
Side of it. Yeah.
Yep, you're right. When you write your own story, that's what you're going to imagine. And hey, again, it's the same thing of a book, like I started off talking about, what my pastor said. And I think even there's a song about that, actually. I don't remember I was supposed to look it up before we started talking, but I didn't. But there's actually a very popular hit song about, filling in the pages of your book. Your book is blank. You can write your own story and you can direct it. You can direct your own movie, right? Because you are the director of your life. You know what I mean? It's very true. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, in the book, in one of the chapters, I do explain the 3 systems of the brain. I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist, but the information's out there. I simply simplified it and made it systems.
Right.
So, I mean, I call it the producer brain, because without a producer, you don't have a movie. But the producer brain is the reptilian brain, and that keeps us breathing, and it keeps our heart beating. So, I mean, we don't have a lot of control over that one. The limbic system is the home of the emotions, and we can live there. But we can also get stuck there. Where then I call it the drama queen of the drama queen of the acting. Because then we're always reacting to life instead of acting the direction we want to go. And then, as you said, the director, you get a better director when you tap into your cerebral cortex. And that's where we plan, where we use our own judgment, where we use common sense, where we use our reasoning. But you got to get there, which means you really do have to pay attention and say, okay, I'm going to do this. So I really appreciate you bringing up Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. Actually, the book starts like that. Hey, this is Hollywood. Everything's possible in Hollywood.
Oh my gosh. Hey, that's connection, huh?
I know, that's synchronicity. That was really well done.
That's right.
There's another movie that she was in called Sleeping with the Enemy, where she is in a very abusive domestic violence situation.
That's a hard movie to watch, right?
It really is. It really is. And but I talk about it in there because if you can't leave a situation like that, watch the movie, look at what she did. She planned it out. She planned disguises. She planned how to escape. She set all the pieces in order first, and then she made her escape. And that's what I'm saying in the book, is that we could use something like that, a scene from a movie like that, to plan it ourselves, using our imagination, and then using intention to actually do it.
That's good. So you like Julia Roberts, huh? I can't believe I picked that up.
Well, yeah, I like them all. I like them all. You can tell I love movies.
Well, obviously, yes, you're a video producer, right? So that's awesome. So I like that. So to answer the question, what you want readers to walk away with, you want them to know that they can direct their lives, they can plan it out, and they can be the director, they can be the producer of their own lives, because their life is a movie. Exactly. All right. Yeah. So, so the question I had here, but I think you already answered it, is you mentioned awareness, imagination, and an intention. How do all these combine to give us what you call the Hollywood ending? So is there something else that you want to add to that we didn't talk about already?
Well, probably I'll just repeat it, hopefully simply, and that is that we really do need self-awareness to know what our baseline is. Where are we really in our life? Not where I think I am or where I want to be, but where am I really in my life? So that is the self-awareness of being honest about, here's what my life is. and what parts of it do we want to change the movie up? And by using our imagination, it is easier to go in a new direction, because self-change is hard. I mean, you're changing a self-image, and that is not an easy thing to do by any stretch of the imagination. But when you combine awareness, imagination, and intention, you truly have become very much a director in your own life. And those three go together and exponentially give you more growth than you would have had otherwise.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
And it is a workbook. So, I mean, at the end of each chapter, there is a list of a few things to do. And the first one is go watch a movie. But I want you to watch this movie through this lens, so that you're watching the movie from a different perspective. So you're gaining awareness from watching that movie or that movie scene, or even remembering that movie scene.
Yeah. And it's, you know, I don't know much about movies or directing or anything like that. I know as a coach that I always teach that, you know, we're the director of our own lives because we make the decisions. But it's interesting that I just learned about what a director does by reading about, I'm reading Oprah's biography right now, and there's a whole chapter in there about the failure of her movie Beloved. And they talk about the director, how before he took the role, he had to envision what he wanted it to look like. And then they write a screenplay based on his vision of it. And then everything that he does in the movie is all based on his vision of not what the book says, but what he wants the movie to portray. So I'm understanding exactly what a director does. So when you know what I mean? So for every scene, he's got a vision of what he wants you to do or whatever. And it starts before he even gets on set. The vision is already formed. And that's basically
he's got it in his imagination.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you know, and his imagination is how the movie is going to go. You know, that's the direction that it's going to go. It's not going to go any other direction. So you've got to have an end goal, which is the same thing that, you know, one of the main things they taught us in coaching school is that before you sit down on a coaching session, you have to know what you want the outcome of the session to be, right? You don't just go in without, right? Yeah. even in an hour session, you've got to know what you want, because if you don't know what you want, then you're just sitting there talking. You have to have a vision. And that's basically the same thing we're talking about, you know, the director of your life. All right. So you mentioned two of the examples that you mentioned in the book. We talked about Pretty Woman. We talked about Sleeping with the Enemy. Is there any other examples that you want to cover from your book?
Oh, let's see. There are, from the standpoint of how our brain works and what it does, and again, coming down to three different systems, I recommend in there seeing the movie Die Hard with Bruce Willis, because there are there are places in it where Bruce Willis, one, is so emotionally distraught kind of that he's not thinking and he just does something, which is he throws some C4 down an elevator chute without recognizing that, oh, it's going to explode. And where's that explosion going to come? Oh, it's going to come right back up the chute into my face.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa. So that's an example of us doing something without thinking of the consequences, which when
it blows up in your face,
distraught,
literally.
We don't, literally.
It blows up in your face.
And then there's, and then there's parts where he's having an argument with himself. Somebody gets shot and he was there present, but he was also outnumbered. So he said, well, gee, John, why didn't you step in and do something? And then the other part of him says, because then you'd be dead too. So in that movie, he shows what happens when it's just our reptilian brain and we're just in survival mode. When he's fighting, he's in survival mode. He's not thinking. He is just trying to either protect himself or get rid of the bad guy. He has moments when he's in his emotions, he feels his emotions, he recognizes, I might not get out of this alive, and I really do love my wife, and I want my wife to know that. And then throughout the whole thing, to be able to systematically get rid of the bad guys when you're outnumbered, he has to use his cerebral cortex, and he has to plan it. He has to use a strategy. So it's a great movie for recognizing the three parts of our brain and how they function.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I was trying to remember that one, but I think my brain is stuck on the one that I just saw with him a couple of days ago. And it was Die Hard, but it wasn't that one because he did several. This is the one where the one that I just watched. Right, exactly. That was the one where someone broke in and killed his wife and beat up his daughter, right? And that's the one that I'm thinking of. So, but I know I've seen the one you're talking about when they kidnapped his wife, I think. Is that the one?
Yeah,
they kidnapped his wife.
They're in this big tall,
right.
Big, tall
right. I've seen
building.
It. Right. So I don't actually remember the movie because I haven't seen it in a while. But that's basically what listen. Criminals, they always say, have an incredible amount of brain power because they plan these things out. And in the movie, you're right, there's the bad guy and there's Bruce Willis, and he has to outmaneuver them. And the only way you do that is by you're right, by planning, directing, understanding what their next move is going to be. One of the best movies, it's not a movie, it was a Netflix documentary, and it was about a guy that planned a robbery, and he was a chess player, and he knew exactly what the other person was going to do after he made it. It was actually one of the most amazing movies. Now that I'm sitting here, I'm thinking of Heist, but it wasn't called Heist, but it was so interesting that down to the smallest piece,
details.
He knew what, if he did this, they would do that. And that's exactly what they did. So, no, I don't play chess. So, I mean, I guess I need to learn that, because it's a skill. It's a skill with playing chess. Right. Okay. All right. So we already talked about the field and cross method. Do you want to expand on it a little bit more?
Sure.
Someone that's listening that is a teacher that works with, children with learning disability, or I think you mentioned atypical problems. Are they still using this method in schools or wherever?
They don't use it in school that I'm aware of. There are, I certainly know physical therapists who work out of schools who are also Felden Price practitioners. So I do know that. To actually become a practitioner, it's a 4-year course, just like 4 years of college. So, it's probably not going to have a lot of teachers that take 4 years off and go learn something different. But they could do something similar within their own classroom, absolutely, just by helping children learn awareness of themselves, offering them options, and then helping children make their own choice. So one of the things within Felden Price work is taught through movement. So we teach awareness, options, and choice, but those lessons are taught through the avenue of movement. Most of us, not everybody's interest is in learning things through movement, but we certainly all can, because that's how we grow up. Experiential learning. You do something, did it work? Did it not work? Did it get you what you wanted? Did you get in trouble for it? So, that is how we learn, is experientially. And one of the classic lessons in the Felden Price community would be, it's called a pelvic clock, and it's the ability to get your pelvis moving in all the different directions of a clock, and that it's better to be able to move a little bit in all these directions than a whole lot just one way. So it's definitely the opposite of one-way thinking. in my work with children, I teach them how to create a clock. And I teach it out of clay. And they have to make the clock, and they have to make the 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12. And then they have to make a little person and put the person in the center of the clock. And the idea is that, okay, here is what here is what in my class you always do. And then you get in trouble for it. And then we're back to right where we are now. And then I have to decide, do I send you the principal? What do we do? What if you altered what you did just a little bit even? Yes, you could absolutely not do it, which would be like 6 o'clock, but could you just alter your behavior a bit? And that way you can work yourself around step by step by step to not doing something or to stop doing something. And that really is important when we have behaviors that are dysfunctional to the point that they get us in trouble. And I mean, drug use, overeating, or alcohol, I mean, those could all be, the real extremes of it. But it's the idea, okay, maybe if you can't completely stop drinking, could you cut back? And then with awareness, you start finding out, well, no, I can't cut back. I either drink or I don't drink. And that's when you start to realize, okay, I think I've got a real problem here. Because some people could do that. I can cut down on drinking. Now, but can you literally
stop?
Right. Or do you need to stop? Because no, if I start, I won't stop. But that's self-awareness. So, I mean, that's how we start breaking it up, behavior patterns up. And so that's what Feldenkrais started thinking about, was that if we break up the muscular patterns within us that we probably learned very, very young, then the thoughts that go with that, and I'm talking about dysfunctional ones, because if we're functioning fine, then you probably don't need it. But it's the idea that, okay, now my repetitive thoughts don't have anything to really sit on because I've broken up the muscular patterns. And then if I don't think those thoughts, or I think different thoughts, then my emotions are going to be different. And so it's this intertwining of movement and thinking and our emotions that get tied up in this knot. And through the Feldenkrais method of movement and learning awareness through movement, you can break those up. And then again, change and transformation can come faster because you've incorporated movement as well as thinking and emotions.
Yeah. And I think from what I remember regarding the movement piece is that when you move, you kind of secure it to your body in a way, right? So if you're moving, it's something similar. I think I heard that in yoga, that when you are, when you're thinking and moving at the same time, the mind and body connection, that's what I'm going for. The mind and body connection kind of seals it in, right? Is that where you're going? Right. Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Because those two things link up to become our mind. Right. The mind, our brain and our body link up to become our individual mind. Okay. And if life is going well for you, that's great. If it's not going well for you, or you have an area that you want to change because you're not happy with this part of it or that part of it, and if we want to become the director in our own movie, then this is simply a way that we can do it. I mean, Shakespeare used to say that the whole world is a stage and we're just actors on it. Well, now in this day and age, everybody's got a camera. You said it yourself, everybody's got a camera. So it's like the chances are you're going to be on camera somewhere.
Right. Yeah. People are making a lot of living, big money now, just recording everything on, everybody is a director and a producer now, because the cell phones are getting better and better and better. And you don't need the big fancy camera. The cell phones can do it. So that's awesome.
Oh, it's amazing what those cell phones can do. You are correct.
Yes,
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, you go on YouTube and you'll see all the people that are making a lot of money from their cell phones, right? Yes, yep.
Yep, exactly.
So, and Instagram too. Don't forget Instagram. All right. Now, you mentioned here that from May 1st through May 10th, there's a free online Feldenkrais Summit that you want to invite our listeners and those watching on TV to attend. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, I want to invite everybody to it, absolutely positively. Every year, May 1st, May 10th, there is a Feldenkrais Summit, and it is free, it is online, and it's an international summit. So for those whole 2 weeks, you have presentations that come from Feldenkrais practitioners around the world who have taken their work and specialized in it. So you can learn about, there is trauma. I mean, from anyone who was victimized and has been traumatized. Some have taken it into working with world-class athletes, top performers. There are, what else? Oh, some people have taken it literally into working with animals. And that is amazing what her name's Linda Tellington-Jones, and it's amazing what she can do with animals. And I took it into behavior. So, I mean, it could be applied in a whole bunch of different ways. So the summit has all these different international speakers, and it also has literally 24 hours of Feldenkrais awareness through movement lessons, where those are the movement lessons. And it's all free. So it's an opportunity for people to experience the Feldenkrais method. And when you can break up those muscular patterns, you can feel better, you move better. And if you can feel better and move better, chances are you're going to think better as well.
Exactly. Where is the summit? You didn't give me a website.
Oh, FeldenkraisSummit.com.
Oh, that's basically it. All right.
Literally,
so we're gonna have to spell
We're
gonna have to spell this word, but my listener audience knows that they can head over to the show page, which is blog.myhelps.us, and there is going to be a transcript of this interview with Linda, and also links to her to the summit as well as to her book. But for now, we're going to spell it out. It's Feldenkrais. There's no method, just the Feldenkrais.
Then the word summit.
Summit.
Yeah, okay. Feldenkrais Summit, SUMMIT.com, and that'll get you to the registration, and you can register for free.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think that this is good information, because from what you have talked to me about on the show today only, I know that it's something that it can work. And like you've mentioned, it can not only be for behavioral issues for teachers that are, maybe have some children in elementary school. It's usually when the behaviors are an issue. It can be for coaches as well. And
absolutely.
You talked about, from coaches that can, help people with their awareness. And, hey, it's an excellent coaching model. Write your own movie. Pick a movie that you like. Everybody likes a Pretty Woman one. Pick your movie like you. Find your dream guy and let him, then, yes, listen, hey, that's usually what Hollywood ending is about, right? So you can do that. And then you mentioned that for trauma, we didn't touch on trauma, but tell us briefly how you think that this method would help with the trauma.
Well, first and foremost, it can help to alleviate or reduce the amount of stress and the feeling one gets when one has been traumatized. Okay. It's very much pulling someone inward and helping. I mean, if you do breathing lessons, if you come from some kind of trauma, chances are, one, your pelvis isn't moving probably. Right. And so you might have back pain. You might have pain in your knees. So pain's going to be the driving factor. If we breathe better, we're going to feel better. And breathing is what helps us calm ourselves. And if you've ever found yourself in a very stressful or traumatizing situation, you're either holding your breath or your breath is very shallow. Right. And you can, if you start learning movement lessons, you can learn how to calm yourself down and work through trauma. I think there are a lot of places that talk about the issue is the issue is in the tissue. That's the word. I think in yoga, they often say that.
Yeah, I actually have an episode on that I did that, you know, it's a very popular episode too, because we were talking about women holding issues in their tissues. That's what it is. Holding your issues in your tissues. Right. Yeah. Right. We're talking about their sexual organs. Right. Right. They hold trauma there.
Yes, especially that.
Right. And I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago that talked about the same thing, that she was able to say, if you've got pain in your hip, then it comes from this. If you've got pain someplace else, then it comes from this, because you're right. Whatever trauma or whatever you're having, it attaches to a part of your body. So what you're saying is if you move that body, then you get rid of it. So that's pretty good. I'm liking this, you know. I'm a big learner. I love learning things, and this is new to me, and I love it.
Good. Well, and we are talking about, if you raise your awareness as to, okay, the pain is in my shoulder, but is that really where the problem is? The problem could be in my pelvis, where I froze up, or these ribs froze up on this side. They're not moving. And the pain is here, but my focus is here. But the problem's over there. Isn't that interesting? So again, it's unrolling those movement patterns to unlocking them, is a better word. The movement patterns, so that we can move better and feel better.
That's awesome. All right. All right. Okay, excellent. So as we wrap up, tell us about, you know, well, before I ask that, so your book, Hollywood Endings and How to Have One, you're combining it with the Feldenkrais work, or it is just about, you know, being the director, producer of your own life and having a Hollywood ending movie? Do you combine the two?
I do combine the two, so very much so. Thank you for asking that. I use the movies as kind of a hook, that it makes it more enjoyable. You either can remember this particular scene I'm talking about in the book, or, oh, that dialogue triggers something or whatever. And then using your imagination to, I wonder if I could have, you know, I could imagine myself doing that, and maybe the situation would turn out similar to how it did in the movie. You don't. And then you use your intention to actually do it. So, I mean, an example I give in the movie, it's called The Last of the Dogmen. It's probably one of those movies that not many people have seen.
I haven't.
But the actor Tom Berenger, he jumps on his horse. He's leaving his girlfriend, Barbara Hershey, and it's a bittersweet ending. They probably will never see each other again, but they love each other. He gets on his horse and he starts to walk away, and then he stops his horse. And he gets down and he goes back and he grabs her in this big hug and gives her a last kiss. And think of that. If you had somebody leaving you to go off to the military for training or whatever, and somebody's going to be gone for a long period of time, that they start to go to the car and then stop before they get in, and they come back and they say, oh my God, I'm going to miss you so much. I love you so much, and give you one last big hug. My God, that's thrilling. And that could be thrilling in your own life, and it's a very simple thing to do, but you've got to have awareness and imagination to do it.
Right. Okay. I love it. All right. So you're right. I'm glad I asked that, because I wasn't connecting it. So, you know, it looks like we were talking about two separate things. So I'm glad that I asked the question and we're able to connect it. All right. So now tell our listeners where they can get a copy of your book. Do you have a website that you want to talk about?
Well, I do not have a website at the moment. I absolutely do have a Facebook page called Hollywood Endings. The book can be found, Hollywood Endings and How to Get One, can be found on Amazon. And in the book, I also refer to a friend's website who does offer free awareness through movement, Feldenkrais awareness through movement lessons. And his link is in the book, so that if you want to not expand, but accelerate your learning and couple what you learned in this chapter with a movement lesson. Here's a free lesson that you can go to and you can do. And then you relate the two and think, oh, you know, I got through that much faster than I thought I would have, because you're connecting the two now, movement as well as awareness.
That's amazing. All right, I'm seeing two ways that people can use your information. Teachers and coaches and practitioners can use it to help with their clients, and people can also individually help themselves with this information. So, two uses of it.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's pretty good.
I think there is a form of therapy out there that's called cinema therapy, actually, where I think therapists have to be specifically trained, but they do that. They relate the movie to what they're dealing with their client, but it takes the defensiveness down. If you're referring to this person in this movie and what she did or he did, it's not as threatening that if we're talking about it, it's something that happened in our own life.
Right. That's actually good too. I like that. That. Because, you know, a lot of times people, when they don't want to talk about themselves, they say my friend or I heard this. So that's a good way. You know, we put it into the movies and things like that. All right. Well, Linda, as we come down to the end now, I want to tell you that I thoroughly enjoyed learning new things. You know, I am a classic learner. I love new information. I love learning new things. And I can honestly say that in all my worldly travels and reading and all that, I've actually never heard of this one. So, but.
Well, I'm glad you have now.
Right, exactly. I have. But the great thing about it is, you know, there's a passage in the Bible that says there's nothing new under the sun. Everybody uses things and just expands on it. So what you're talking is just a unique way of getting to the same end result. But the end result is that we are in control. A lot of people let things happen to them. Life happens to them. You know, as a coach, I say that you can design your own life. You know what I mean? I love the law of attraction. It's the same thing. But if you imagine it, if you think about it, if you pray about it, it can happen to you. So as we're using a specific method, but we're talking about the same thing. Life does not happen to us, right? We are in control of our own lives. You know, we are the director or producer, right? And you know, you mentioned about the reptilian brain or Die Hard, where when you're in a flight or flight, you know, you're not thinking about tomorrow. You might not live to tomorrow. No. So you're in survival mode. So when you're in survival mode, you can't think, you don't have any imagination or whatever. You're just trying to stop the stuff from blowing up in your face. So we talked about some great stuff on the show. So
and you're right. It's not new. This is basic information. It's just put it in a different way that makes it more interesting. And it could be faster if we include the movement piece with it.
Yes, right, exactly. Yes. And everybody likes movies. You know, everybody's got a favorite movie. And, you know, they can go back and look at why they like it and try to see themselves as the heroine in the movie. So awesome. So great. We had a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Linda, and sharing this unique information, but information that we all can use and everybody can take certain parts of it, whether it be the Hollywood ending, whether it be, you know, you talked a lot about self-awareness and self-control. We can do that. I love the Die Hard piece. Where, you know, when you're in the survival mode, the fact that, you got to think about, you know, if I do this, is this going to blow up in my face? You know, things like that. You know, your brain actually goes into a higher revolving where you can make really good decisions when you're in flight and flight. Right. So yeah, a very, very interesting conversation. So I'm going to ask you with just one last question. So, you know, our show is called Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life. Give me one last advice that you would leave someone based on, you know, what we talked about, that they can transform their mind and transform their life?
All right. Well, ironically, I'm going to refer to a movie. I'm going to suggest everybody go watch the movie Baby Boom with Diane Keaton, because in it, in an instant, she goes from she has to change her self-image. She is a New York executive, and literally overnight, she becomes a single parent of a toddler who had lost her parents. And she moves from New York to upstate Vermont. And she is honest about when her life was absolutely falling apart, and actually tells somebody that I need help, my life's falling apart. She finds purpose while she is there. She finds a gap or a need that's out there in the world, and she fills that need with a product. And then she is able to use all of her old skills to market that product and become a completely, not a completely different person, but she has the ability to marry who she was before with who she has become now, and she becomes even more of what she was before. Anytime I need inspiration, I go watch that movie. I've probably watched it 12, 13 times. That's my advice.
That's good. That's good. I like it. I don't think I've seen it, so I will definitely go watch it. But I hear what you're saying. You know, when something happens to you, you got to transform your mind. You don't just fall or cave. You transform your mind. You accept it because it's already here. I love, I think Eckhart Tolle talks about that. Don't fight anything because it's already here. Right? Accept it, transform your mind, and work with it. Love it, love it, love it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, and appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
And for all our listeners and watchers, you know, people watching on TV, thank you for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life. I think this was a good session today on skills that you can use to do that. So thanks again, Linda. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you.
Until next time, blessings.